How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have the Wise Man Fears back on again for, I'm going to say, fourth time. And they can say their names, what they do, and all that jazz.
What's up, Internet? I'm Paul. I play drums.
I'm Thomas. I play bass. Also, what's up, Internet?
I also thought for sure Paul was going to add more onto that, so I was like
I did
fully
too.
waiting for
I wasn't ready to go.
He was just like, "What's up, Internet?" And then just rephrase. Yeah, you did speedrun that. I appreciate that. Obviously, I've had you guys on. I think I had the last time I had Joe, Tyler, and Paul the last time. I'm pretty sure that was the crew we went with, and Joe just Joe does his thing. Big shouts to Joe. Love you. But
leader of the Goon groups.
The leader of the Goon Squad. But I think we had alluded to the last time you were talking about just releasing singles, going further and stuff. And there's been, obviously a handful of singles that have been released now. And you have an album coming out called Atlas Runica. I'm pretty sure my pronunciation is correct on that.
Yeah, nailed it.
How did that kind of come to be? I know, I imagine, what was like the timeline in terms of this being recorded? Was this during, the pandemic and writing that? And, how was that process of working through this? Because I remember, we've been friends and homies for a very long time, and it's been cool to see the growth throughout the entire, album processes that I've seen you guys, do. What do you feel like maybe separated this process this time around comparatively to previous records that you guys have released?
I mean, yeah, COVID was a big piece of it for sure.
Fair,
that made it weird. Tom, do you remember when we started tracking for this?
I don't know, because that's one, the main thing I was going to say is that what we did differently with this album is I feel like we booked out studio sessions a lot more frequently for it, so kind of blends together a lot more. It just feels like it was kind of smooth sailing, whereas like previous albums it would be like we'd book out 3 long sessions at the studio with Johnny or something like that, and we would knock out a bunch of tracks. I feel like we kind of winged it a little bit more because we had to. We didn't know who would be able to come to the studio.
Sure.
And
yeah, I think we had one session that was a week long or something. For the most part, that was 3 or 4 day stints, and the majority of it was during COVID, if I remember correctly, because there was a lot of oh no, someone at Lee's house got COVID or someone in one of our house got it. So it kept being a few members would go to the studio. Nathan had to Skype in for a couple sessions. I can't remember what was happening, but yeah, it was kind of fragmented, but I think it did end up working in favor of the record because I think in some sense discovered that we do better. We experience less fatigue when we go in shorter stints, and there's a sort of natural laziness that creeps in towards the end of a 2 or 3 week
fair enough
where you're living in a basement and literally not seeing the light of day on many days, and then you're just walking around the basement in circles, and it's you can't not pay attention because somebody's tracking guitar or somebody's working on vocals, and you want to be able to give your 2 cents if there's a delivery you want something affected. But you also, for the most part, it's the vast majority of what's going on is not something you're going to contribute directly to, so it's a lot of hurry up and wait, sitting around, and yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to take in shorter chunks, I think.
Yeah, no, I think, much like a lot of the bands I've had on, I guess more currently, and I feel like we're, knock on wood, we're kind of getting out of that phase of life now. I think it offers a lot of opportunity for bands that I've had on, and they're like, oh, well, we worked on a record during COVID and stuff like that. I think it's really cool to see that bands took, obviously you took as much time as you could on the record, and I in fact, I feel like a lot of the bands that I've had, they've put out some of the best material that they've released in probably, a couple years, just because they've had time to maybe, flesh things out a little bit more, spend a little bit more time on it. And as you said, in short spurts of having okay, well, we got a week to work on this, or maybe a couple days or something like that. And I think it, ultimately help with the perspective of the record, I'd imagine. But, how was that, process of, again, going in shorter bursts and like really kind of, did you feel like you guys took a little bit more time or thought into, how the songs are arranged, because you knew that you're like, okay, well, I don't know when we're going to get out of this, I don't know when we're going to be able to, move on to the next phase? Do you feel like you guys took a little bit more care and thought that, maybe previous records just didn't allot for, or did you kind of go about the album process in a similar fashion, I guess?
I think like out the gate, even before we had released Valley of Kings, and that
Hmm.
we released that like sort of pandemic height 2020, like May, and even before that came out, I had a lot of the storyline for this one ironed out, and
Hmm.
already I was pretty committed to spending more time focusing on the story aspect and um, lyrically trying to get a little more. I don't know if in the weeds is the right term, but really like dialing up the Easter egg count and trying to explore some new turf there.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it was in some ways we were able to focus more on the writing for these songs just because everyone was stuck at home doing nothing. But it came together much faster than Valley, believe it or not. Like
Wow.
that
All right.
record, it took us like 3 years to, from start to release for Valley of Kings, and we were done with Atlas in like 1 year, essentially. So it
Wow.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, and maybe that is just because we were stuck at home and it's like, all right, I guess, we'll work on songs and whatever and just bounce demos
Yeah.
back and forth. But it definitely focused us up a lot.
I think it helped too, like starting with kind of a clean slate, like finishing up the trilogy, and it was like super exciting knowing that like we could just do something like fresh and new. Not like we got tired of the other storyline or the trilogy, obviously, but it was just like, wow, like we have a lot of possibilities here, and it's also going to be exciting to see how like people receive this as
Sure.
compared to like previous stuff. So that was like, I don't know, that made me a lot more excited about working on this album for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as the singles have come out, I've taken a listen to all of them, and I'm like, obviously being the mega homies that you guys are to me, like I wanted to listen to them and kind of get an idea, and I've really enjoyed all of them, because and that might sound much like a cop out to everybody here watching this, but I really do feel like the material is just like, I don't know how to explain it, but it does feel like more elevated in the way that like there was some stuff with like Valley of Kings that I really enjoyed, but I like that you guys have kind of taken the ball a little bit further down the field metaphorically and just kind of done different things. And I know, Paul, you just mentioned in terms of the storyline, you wanted to put a lot more Easter eggs and put a lot more thought into how the lyrics go. Was that something that you kind of wanted to do, post Valley of Kings, where you were just like, okay, like we have all of these great storylines? And I think that was what really kind of, got me engaged with you guys early on, when, many moons ago. And so I like that, the fact that with each album, there's always something that I'm like, okay, this is kind of a thought process from Valley of Kings that maybe I had listened to in a previous record, or maybe the first record. And so was there kind of a thought process behind it, in like the way that you go about writing? You were like, okay, can I amplify the Easter eggs? Can I kind of like amplify the way that the lyrics are written, in a sense that like I feel like it's like a movie series where, like, you got the first movie that's kind of like the baseline. The second movie, okay, you're expounding upon the story a little bit more. The third record, you're like, okay, we're like pretty heavily into the story. Can I add some more like lore elements in there? And then by this fourth record, you're like, okay, people know it. People know about what we're doing, or the like kind of the movie franchise. How can I push that even further? Was that kind of like a thought process in, going into the lyrics in that aspect?
It was a big piece of it for sure. Like, I think it was equal parts running towards something that we were excited about, and then
Hmm.
also steering clear of making what could have been a very classic mistake. That this is like less prevalent maybe in the music world, but it's something like if you've seen any of the recent like Marvel stuff, I feel like a lot of that suffers from the franchise over milking, where it's nobody really asked for Eternals, but here it is, and it's getting
That's true, yeah.
advertised, and it's like it's fine. Probably, I haven't seen it. I don't really care,
It was
but
okay.
yeah, it's like, but like that's to me, that's a very scary place to be, where it's like, yeah, that's okay, like nice record, guys, that's all right, And so, really, it's like I started writing it was like a sequel to Valley of Kings way back. This was like, well before Valley came out. And I was like, the very beginning threads of the storyline, I was like, this just feels like lame. It's like, we're going to send another knight on a different quest. Like,
Oh my God,
yeah,
you
it's
won't
like,
believe it. Like, yeah.
yeah. It was some like succession, like the king is dying and like giving this clue to his son. And it's like, that's like fun in a vacuum, but just the way that it all rounded out, and Joe deserves a lot of credit for this because he sort of had the idea to loop back the opening chords from our very first track of the first record into the ending of the third and create like, but essentially now became a time loop. Like we integrated that into the story, and it creates this like, metaphorical cycle that's never ending and blah blah blah. And to me, like that's so much more exciting than like, in the next chapter, like, everybody knows that show that didn't know when to quit, and season 12 comes out and they're like, oh my gosh. Then I
That's
just
true.
played like all the Uncharted games back to back, and I was like, action adventure is so cool. So yeah.
No, and I think the thing I love that you guys take that attention to detail. I think that's what, at least to me, not only that we are friends. I think that the attention to detail shows in the music, and I think that even if I didn't know, like obviously your fans are pretty dedicated to what you guys do and being a part of the fantasy core gang. Like I think that you guys have always managed to make the lyricism a vital part of the music. And I think that sometimes, as being in, the metalcore scene, you could be like, oh, well, the music has to be important. And I mean, certainly so. But I also think lyrically, like, you guys delve, really into the storyline. And I think almost to the level of like, or probably very similarly to the level of like Coheed and Cambria, where like they really kind of like, flesh out stories, even very similarly to like maybe like the Deer Hunter, where like he has the Axe series and kind of goes through that storyline. Like I find it impressive, at least obviously I'm not like nerdy in that sense that I've like know everything about the storyline, but I think I kind of have a pretty good grasp on it generally. And there's probably people that are going to be commenting and be like, yeah, this is like what the storyline is or whatever. And I think that that's really cool, and I think that hopefully that element carries along to the fan base. And I think people, I even remember on the album review I did for Valley of Kings, people were like, oh yeah, this part was from like this album. And I think that that's really cool that, again, you're taking that sort of like like a novel, or the way that you would go about kind of a book, like those sorts of elements where you're like, okay, well, this is an integral part of the storyline. How can we kind of focus it back to maybe the second album, track number like 6, where lyrically I talk about this. And I think there's a lot of puzzle pieces that get fit into certain slots where again the attention to detail is like super high. And I know Paul and I are big fans of like Make Them Suffer, so I feel like in that aspect too, you guys pull from them lyrically, in the sense that it's just very like, if you wanted to listen to the music and enjoy it, you could certainly do that, but there's a lot more lying underneath that. If you are a dedicated fan and you really enjoyed the band itself, and you want to like have the elements of like, okay, we started from this spot, like how do we get to the point at the end of Atlas Runica, like how did these kind of formulate together? And I think that's really cool. And obviously I know you guys will continue to do that well beyond we'll be on interview like 100 by this point. And you'll have some sort of off the wall storyline, which is awesome. But
About like living in a nursing home and crapping in adult diapers by album art.
And you probably wouldn't be too far off
Geriatric
at that
core.
point. Yeah, geriatric core. That'll be the next music video.
Osteoporosis.
That'll be the next music
Yeah.
video. It's just a bunch of like stock video of like old people in a nursing home, and then you somehow try to thread that in with like your lyrical content. You know, if you somehow do that, I'd be damn near impressed on that. But in regards to like the naming of the album, as I mentioned, you know, previously, you guys were kind of going through the process of, you know, releasing singles. I think Paul and I, we definitely had DM'd about that. What was the thought process of like changing that over to just, because I think at the time you were like, okay, we're just going to keep releasing singles and then, you know, inevitably, you know, maybe announce an album or something like that. So in terms of that thought process, you know, when did it become the point that you're like, okay, maybe we should just like release some of the singles and then be like, hey, we're releasing an album, here's what it's called, like blah blah blah. Was that always the forethought, or did you guys kind of want to go down the line of like, okay, we're just going to keep releasing singles until we do like, you know, a Spirit Bots single EP and we put all the songs together on like an album?
We kind of went back and forth on this for a long time, but ultimately what in my mind what sort of turned the tide was we left Sharp Tone and kind of went on an independent high where we're like, we can release songs however we want and whenever we want, and we can like do impulsive stuff.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, what we had been sort of tentatively planning was to call the record Solomon's Gate, which is the final track on the record, and that's sort of the format we've used for all of our albums. And that was just like one more little detail where it's like, wait a minute, like we don't, you know, new trilogy, new us, like, like we don't have to be bound by these like arbitrary rules that we established because, you know, they were cool. You know, there's no reason to adhere to any sort of like past precedent that we've sent. So
Sure.
or
Yeah.
set rather. So yeah, it was just, you know, as I was sort of fleshing out the specifics of the story, kind of figured out that the book that it's revolving around should be called the Atlas Runica. And, you know, we were kind of just roundtabling in the studio, and everybody was just like, yeah, it's like a cool name. We should try to make that a song title. And it just didn't fit anywhere really. Yeah, like all the song titles are pretty thematically important to how they're linked with their tracks. So
Nice. Okay.
yeah, we're just like, screw it. What if we just like, we're not going to put 11 tracks on this one. It's going to be 10. And we're going to, you know, it's like the little baby insanity wolf meme of just like these minor little change ups that, you know, to us are cool and interesting and probably don't matter at all to like the majority of people. But that was sort of my, how I remember it going down.
I think that like, because we like Paul said, we kind of discussed it for a while. We were like, how are we going to drop this album?
Yeah.
And then the more I thought about like the, you know, the single by single format, like we've kind of been doing it so far, because we're halfway through the album now, right, Paul?
A little over 6 out of 10, baby.
Ooh,
Yeah.
All right.
So,
all right.
I don't know. Not only does it kind of help to get you on other people's radar more easily. Like I found that like through like Sleep Token dropping Sundowning. I don't know why I can't say that.
That's all right.
I liked having more time to appreciate each individual single. Like
yeah.
we really talked about how like when you're listening through an album all the way, like songs that are, you know, tracks like 5 and 6 are going to have like middle album syndrome, where you're going to be kind of fatigued and you're going to maybe tune out a little bit, and they kind of just get lost in the mix eventually when, you know, you don't give somebody the time to actually like observe it and think about it for a little bit before the next song comes, you know?
Sure.
So I think that's helped a lot.
Or even I like another sort of example that jumps to mind is like how people will binge a series on Netflix because there's no reason to pace yourself, right? So it's like it's specifically with such a story heavy record, it's like we kind of want to force people to have to chew on stuff a little bit, and like we know our music consumption patterns, and for me it's like when I hear a song I like, I add it to my Spotify and I just burn it out. There's no like moderation whatsoever. And so, like Thomas is saying, there's a combination of, you get that like Sleep Token, Spirit Box, Bring Me the Horizon strategy where it's like every song is an opportunity to pitch to an editorial playlist, is an opportunity to hit a release radar, blah, blah, blah. So there's like the strategic element of it, but there's also this like, you know, artistic development side of how, remember, like, growing up, it's like you have a TV show you like, and it's like you'd have to wait a week to see the next episode of whatever was on.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
People on
yeah.
the seat of their, or the edge of their seat, waiting for like the next Lost episode. And it's like you that's what instigates all these conversations about, like, oh, what do you think's going to happen, or can you believe what happened, and blah blah blah. And that's kind of the we felt like that effect is going to be a better way to digest the record than just like, here's all this information and here's all this backstory info dump exposition about it, and maybe 0.5% of people go through and actually like read it or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that pacing helps to sort of push the messaging behind it a lot further.
I think we've kind of seen the result from that so far, like just in our Discord server and stuff. Like Paul said, it gives people longer to just chew on it and really figure out what's going on. And there's like actively conversation going on about the storyline stuff. Like anytime, even if the track hasn't been dropped yet, people will like find the lyrics, or they'll go to the YouTube premiere and like copy and paste the lyrics into the Discord server and be like,
Nice,
okay,
yeah.
like what do we think this line means? And like if we were just dropping all of those songs at once, it like there wouldn't be an active dialogue like that so much for everything.
Yeah, also think there's like a level of anticipation. Like, I'm very much old school. I love listening to an album front to back. I grew up in the era where you would get like maybe 3 or 4 singles, and then they'd be like, all right, you gotta wait till this comes out, and then you can listen to the rest of it. And I think I also like, Paul's point about like watching TV shows, and I'm old as shit, so like, I remember growing up and watching like Pokemon on WV or something like that, and being like, oh my god, I can't wait till the next episode is gonna be so sick, and I think there's this bless, but there's some level of like anticipation, and I kind of find that similarly with music, where like you could do a Stranger Things and just release all of them, and that could go over well. But I think that the problem is with music recently, I would argue, is just there's an attention deficit where you're like, okay, if we release all of these at once, like people are just gonna run through them all and then be like, yo, Paul, all right, yo, Thomas, when's the next record coming out? And you're like, we just spent so much time and effort on this record, and you're already asking me for new shit? Like, no, that's not how it works.
True. Like it's gratifying that people want to hear more music, but it is a little bit frustrating when it's like, on release day, put out this album that you've been working on for literal years, and then people are like, sick, when can we expect more? And it's like, I don't know, man. Like,
just listen to this, right? It came out today,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's definitely very understandable, but just like the whole binge format. Oh man, I was gonna say something, and my brain did its thing, so I don't remember.
I think I feel like maybe we might be on the same wavelength, but like the binge format is just like everything all at once, and that's what you're gonna get, is everything all at once, and that's
and also, like, we were initially talking about like, maybe we should do 5 singles, maybe we should do like get crazy and do 6 singles.
Yeah.
And I was researching, like, just looking at different people's spin online, and like industry experts talking about like, well, this is the ideal cadence in this many singles, and all of it was talking about like this archaic structure of like, you want to give them a music video with a first single and then a second single and a music video with a third one so that they buy the record. And it's like, nobody's gonna buy a record. Like, all of this structure of like 3 singles album, and the month, 6 to 8 weeks cadence between 1, 2, and 0.3. It's like, that's all engineered around trying to convince a kid to go into Best Buy and buy an album that he can't listen to otherwise. And it's like, that's like, I have really fond memories of that, but that's not how I, or darn near anybody, consumes music at this point. It's like, we don't need to try to like convince people to buy an album. We want them to love the record, and that's what matters. Like, the staying power now is important. It's like, it's not enough to get $10 up front. It's like, we want people to come back this year over year and to have some sort of imprint on whatever, in a person's life. So that was another piece sort of playing around the edges of our decision, I think.
No, I certainly, I think we even had conversations about it as well. Was just like, what do you think? And I remember you asking me originally, and I was like, I'm probably the worst person to ask because I love the full format of just like,
For sure.
of very similarly to what you said, that structure of having the three singles and then have like the hurrah, it's out, and like buying it, and obviously, I'm gonna pick the vinyl up. I haven't done that, shame on me, but I'm gonna cop it. But it to me, like, music has always been that like physical medium where like either I went to a store, picked up a CD, or more currently it's like, okay, I buy a vinyl record and I listen to the entire thing, or I wait 2 years until I get the vinyl and then I listen to it 2 years later. But to me, that formula I could see like working for people who are like my age, or around the same age, where like that's what they know, right? And but younger people are going to be like, okay, well, can this be on TikTok, or like can I stream it, and I think that's kind of where the like there's like clearly a giant gap, like there's probably like a gap right this big where there's people who are like, I only stream music, and then there's people that are like, I collect music, so I want to purchase it and have that physical copy. And I think you guys found a good medium where I was like, okay, there was enough singles coming out where I was like enticed to continue on with the storyline and continue on with obviously just knowing what you guys do and how you do it. And for me it's just more or less like I'm going along for the ride. But for new people, I'd imagine it's like, okay, like they're gonna listen to this album and be like, is this what they do? Like, can I go into the back catalog and see the same thing? And then as we were talking about, kind of combining those elements from different previous records, I think it really, I hope, entices people to kind of go back and listen to old material, because like you said,
Yeah.
there's Easter eggs, there's different lines, there's different lyrical themes going on, and I think there's just a lot more underneath. And I think you're just kind of like almost like musically putting Lego blocks together, where like okay, the first one was like as you said, it's like a series where there's just a storyline, and the way that it kind of grows is dependent upon the person that's listening to it. And again, I hope that people find the dedication to listen to it front to back. I imagine that's what you guys kind of envision it to be, and it looks like that's what the Discord is really kind of going with. So I'll leave a link below. You should join their Discord. But
Sure.
in regards to Atlas Runica, I'm sure this is probably a divisive question, because much like children, if you have children, you can't choose a favorite. But do you happen to have one that maybe is out now, or maybe is not out, that you're like really stoked for people to listen to?
Oh, dude. I think probably we all, or most of us, have different favorites on the record, which to me is always a good sign, right?
Oh,
Like,
100%. Yeah.
it's doing different things for different people. But personally, there's a track called Sea of Fire, which is the second to last track, and that ticks all the boxes for me. That's like, it was super, like, we went into it with like, all right, we want to write like the Uncharted soundtrack, and then blast beats, and then a killer like massive chorus, and then like crazy breakdown activity, and shot a sick music video for it and all this stuff. So to me, I think that's probably the one I'm most excited for.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Thomas?
I cannot wait for that music video. And I don't know, my knee-jerk reaction when like you ask like, oh, what's your favorite track from the album? I want to give like that cliche answer where it's like, oh, every time we drop one, like it becomes my new favorite. Like they all grow on me when we release them. And it's like, I don't really know. I know like listening to all of them before they were released, Tailspin was the one that I listened to,
Ooh.
and I was like, oh shit, like this is crazy. Like this plane crash breakdown, like
Yeah.
this is the new pan flute breakdown, like,
It
and
is.
that wasn't
Yeah.
even the
For real.
intention. But yeah, I was so stoked on that one, and it got received well. But dude, yeah, Sea of Fire is going to be a great one, because that'll probably be the coolest music video that we've dropped to date. It'll
All
have to
right.
be.
All right. You guys
It's
are
an ass
hyping it.
beater.
You guys, it's an ass beat. I will say the one thing that much like a lot of the stuff that I do love what you guys do, the attention to detail in regards to the music videos. I gotta give a shout to whoever does your music videos, because I feel like they're so much like your music. I feel like it's so well thought out in the theming and the way that the production winds up working out, and you're just like it yeah, it must be like vindicating to know that like people are so stoked on the music videos when they come out, certainly. But I think it just kind of adds to that element of like the lyricism, the way that you guys kind of do the whole like fantasy core. Like, I think it's just like, it's like when you see a really good movie and then the movie has just like a banging soundtrack and you're just like, man, this is so cool. So I got to give you guys a major shout. I don't even know if I've even told you that, but like to me, that's like, the creme de la creme, like having the music video and having the music go along with it and have them just be so cohesive together.
Paul is to thank for a lot of that, because Paul has done a lot of directing for music videos that we've put out.
Salutes.
I would say a majority of the videos we've put out, Paul has had a hand in directing, right?
At least on this record, I've done all the ones, like I've shot and edited them. The one that I'm really excited about is the one that I have not, like the one that I didn't shoot or edit. I like co-directed with this dude Ned Ingalls, who lives in Grand Rapids and has worked with like everybody cool.
Everybody.
He's super talented. Like he's absurdly good at what he does. But yeah, I can do like the easy ones. Like the the second track we released is like in Joe in my living room, and the one where Tyler's just like on a piano is just like in a church, and it's all relatively simple. But I appreciate that. Like the intent is always to pack as much detail and referential material into it as possible.
Like you said, it just makes like the ass beating better, So I'm getting soaked. Honestly, you could clip that. That'd be great. I'll only be aware that I said ass beating in a clip. But I was really stoked with the most current one that you guys released, The Rival. I got to give a shout out to Lauren Babick. Lauren, I would love to have you on the channel. Shouts, big love. How did that come to be? I'm always curious how bands go about the feature route, because, obviously being, Lauren Babick, fantastic vocalist. She's awesome. How is that kind of, I guess, trying to pitch her like fantasy core? Like, has she been a fan of the band for a while, or like, I'm just curious how all of these angles came through, because I know Bill Murray, shouts to him, did a song with her a couple different times.
Yeah, dude, it's funny the world. I feel like our little strata of music is very small. We actually, Nathan and I met Lauren at a Whalebone show like
oh wow,
a long time ago. This is probably like 2016 type era. But we were like playing a Whalebone show in Columbus, and we hit up Johnny because he had produced Wise Man stuff. We're like, hey, we'll be in town. Do you want to like come hang on the show? He's like, oh yeah. I've got a band in the studio. Do you mind if I bring a couple friends? And it was Lauren and Jared Alonji. And so they came and hung out. We chilled with them for a while. So that's when like we met her, and just sort of have stayed in like loose touch. But then we were on that Murray and Friends split with her. And then she did a collab with Whalebones for a Positions cover. So she's kind of just like, but she also, she went to Johnny for production for Crazy 88. And then her band also goes to Lee, who's our producer now, for more Red Handed Denial.
Yes,
exactly. And her band has played in my basement. Red Handed played in my basement a couple of years, which I actually wasn't even home for. I was so pissed, but it was like Hollow Front, Red Handed Denial, Seraphim, and then White Lake, which was just a real kick in the nuts to not be there. I was like on vacation with my family, but all my housemates were like, it was so sick, and I was like, oh, but,
you assholes.
All that said, it's like our circles have just sort of, I don't know, been pretty close over the years, and so we just hit her up. We're like, hey, what up, homie? And she's like, can I just like do whatever I'm feeling on this track? And we're like, absolutely. So she crushed
the
it.
trajectory of this band, like thinking about how that all comes full circle now, like the trajectory of this band would have been so different if we hadn't met Johnny.
That's
Like,
true. Yeah.
we wouldn't have met Jared, and Jared does, our merch fulfillment now, and he helps us with a lot of that stuff. We very likely wouldn't have met Lee, because we met Lee through Johnny. We wouldn't have met Lauren. None of the dudes in Sleepwaker, probably, because of the way that weird love triangle works with all of these components.
I was gonna say,
yeah, it's been really interesting.
It is really cool. Like, I think even I'm like adjacent to that circle where, like, I obviously know, shouts to Hollow Front, obviously you guys. I've been trying to get Lauren on the show, so Lauren, if this is my any pitch to you to come on, like, please come on. And obviously Whalebones, like Johnny I've had on with Bill Murray, and so for me it's like it's a cool thing to be a part of the, like, the tribunal here. But it is really cool to see you guys kind of grow too, and I know I mentioned it at the top of the show, but like being a fan for I don't even know when Paul and I had met, like, online. I think Nathan, it was me and Nathan first, and then I had you guys on, like, I think within the first year of me doing YouTube and stuff, and so which
it was very early on.
Yeah, it was like I've been doing this for like almost 7 years now, so this is pretty wild. But to me, it's like to see you guys kind of grow and change and just evolve your sound over the years, and just try to, like, I feel like with each album it's like a fine wine and just kind of keeps getting better. And I feel like with this one thus far, like, I've enjoyed all of the singles pretty heavily, and then obviously very excited to listen to the rest of it. I hope you just slide that new album into the DMs, but I am very stoked to listen to the rest of it, because it storyline wise, I feel like it kind of grows off of what you originally had, but in a completely different take. And like you said, you finished a trilogy, and now you're moving on into the next phase, the Wise Man Fear cinematic universe, and I think for me it's cool to see, just like, I think even too, like, Paul, your lyricism from the first record till now, and every once in a while I'll go back and listen to, like, the old Wise Man Fear stuff, and I'll be like, wow, it's such a completely different thing. And then I'd listen to Valley of Kings and be like, okay, this is great. And then I'd listen to the newest single, The Rival, and it's like so much has kind of, like, grown and changed. Do you guys feel that? I know Thomas joined, like, I don't know how much my brain turns into mush, but I know Thomas joined, like, kind of, I don't know what year you joined, Tom.
I was just talking to them about this the other day, which is weird. I remember the date exactly. It was December 24th of 2015. So It was like a handful of months after Castle dropped, and, like, in the very early stages of getting together stuff for Lost City.
Yes.
And so I was playing the shows that were kind of to support Castle, but I wasn't in the studio for it, so I can't claim any of it. It's our worst album, frankly.
Oh man, it didn't have me on the bass, so objectively it's the worst one. But it's cool because, like, I think even, with the massive addition of Tom on the bass, for me it's cool to see, the lyricism from Castle, Lost City, and then going to Valley of Kings, and then going to the lyricism in this. I just think that everything has kind of been, on that progression of just being, like, more intent, more thoughtful, like, musically. I think you guys kind of go out and do your own thing even more so than I feel like maybe in previous records. There's just, like, I would argue there's, like, more liberties that you guys kind of just broke, and we're like, you know what, we're just gonna do the craziest shit we can do on this record. And I feel like you guys thus far, I mean, again, I haven't heard the ass beater yet, so I want to hold my judgment, but, like,
dude, there's a couple ass beaters, I'm gonna be real with you.
I'm stoked. And I think like even with like, Valley of Kings, like, there was some heavier songs, but I think, like, musically you kind of went there's some songs that are definitely more in that lighter kind of spectrum. So it's cool to see like maybe like the juxtaposition of that where it's like a little bit heavier, a little darker, and so I've always appreciated that you guys kind of are like a wave in the ocean, just kind of like really being intent with how you guys want to like portray the album and continuing on with that theme and stuff. And I'm glad the reception has been awesome thus far, and I'm very stoked for everybody to listen to it.
Thanks, man.
How do you like, I know Tom mentioned earlier, just with the Discord and having people kind of like really critique the songs and stuff. How crucial is it to have that like Discord server of having people like really who are, I would argue, really dedicated fans to your band? Like that must feel really good to just be like, okay, we got a new song, we're premiering it, we're hanging out, we're doing this thing, like we're playing games live, like we're doing all this stuff within Discord and like trying to foster that community growth, obviously. How crucial is that to when, the really dedicated fans are like, oh my God, like this is so cool. And I love that this element was taken from this song and blah, blah, blah. Like it must be vindicating as a collective to be like, holy shit. Like there's people who are really like, really dedicated to it in a sense, it's like, putting out like, I would almost imagine like a comic, and then you're like, this is series volume 1, and then like everybody's like patiently waiting for like volume 2. How does that feel for you guys?
Dude, it's super cool. Like it's almost strange because I think like obviously the story stuff has always been pretty core to what we do, but
Sure.
it's always been an extra layer of depth for anybody who wants to really probe into it. And we definitely wear it a lot more on our sleeve now and talk about that side of things a lot more than we used to. But this is the first record that, particularly the Discord, where it's like, oh, like, people picked up on a detail from a music video. Like we literally had people predicting that the plot was going to wind up in Norway, which is like dead on track 2. People were like scouring
Whoa,
details.
wow.
So, like there's some of those like there's like crazy theories in there too. There's like some stuff that's like not what we wrote for the record in story terms, but it's still insanely interesting and like I wish I would have thought of involving this Babylonian god as well. Like really out there stuff,
Dude,
but it's super cool.
I still remember like I think it was like the day we dropped the second track and we hopped in the Discord and like they created like a lore theorizing exclusive channel in the server, and like they were tagging us and stuff, and somebody mentioned like the Norway shit, and Paul, like you replied and you were like, I literally have no idea how you guys figured this out already. Like this wasn't supposed to happen this soon, but like props to you guys because I mean,
frames the music video where she's holding an envelope that has like coordinates hand drawn on it, and it's really illegible and out of focus, but somebody figured it out.
Oh my God! These are the people you don't want the information to be in the wrong hands. So bless the West. Bless
These are the people that it's like, yeah, we have
bless
to like
the community. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't
own.
have anything. I'm just trying to get some information out of the guys. That's it. That's
it's
my
cool,
hands
though,
are clean.
it really feels cool to have other people that care, and I think in the past people have cared predominantly for the music, and that's still I think the majority of people, vast majority of people
Fair
who
enough.
listen, that's
Yeah.
like what they're there for, which awesome. But it's neat to feel like the little intricacies are being heard and appreciated as well, and it's not just talking into the void.
That's true. I feel like it's I would argue it's kind of like a finger on the pulse where like as soon as a song drops, like people are already talking about like lore or talking about like the music itself or just like I think that that's such a crucial part of like your band, and I love it because I think it's really cool, and I'll probably have to go on the actual Discord server and say what's good. But to me, like that was like, I don't know if that's what you guys had thought about doing for a while, but I just think that just because your music is so lyrically full of depth, I think that that's like a really good place for people to kind of, like you said, explore those ideas of like, okay, well, I don't know what Paul exactly was looking for, but hey, maybe like this is what I feel like this storyline's gonna lead to, and then like it's just kind of like, again, that whole theorizing thing about like where they feel like the story's gonna go, or like maybe even internally you could be like, okay, well, maybe it might not go here now, but I could maybe like take that Discord conversation that was said and maybe throw it into some lyrics like down the line and be like completely blow someone's mind and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you used that like comment I made in Discord like in 2022 or some shit,
No, it's funny. I've told one of the guys in there, Harry, that like I want to collaborate with him for some story ideas in the future because like he's sharp on this kind of stuff and very well versed in his ancient history. And it's like it definitely. I'm like double checking my work to be like, all right, I have all these like, little clue trails. Are they accurate? Did I ever
What if
fudge
he
any
tells
numbers?
you you're wrong and you're actually wrong about the story? Then I feel like
Well, like,
the band would break up immediately.
yeah.
Dissolves the band. Henry dissolves the band. That's don't
It's funny
please.
because I feel like with this album, for the first time, I know like there were a couple things, and I don't want to like give them away, but I know there were some things that we hadn't really done before for Easter eggs, where it's like, do you think somebody will notice if we do this? Like something a little less obvious, like just different variations in riffs and things like that we wanted to experiment with and see how long it would take people to pick up on. So that'll be interesting to see, because like I feel like it's kind of fun to bury stuff as deep as you can and see who digs it up first.
That's yeah. I mean, given the type of music you guys create and the lyrical depth you put into it, I would not be surprised if you've put something like really deep underneath the ground for somebody to inevitably, or maybe not, dig up. I don't know. I mean, I would hope there's some mystery that is remained on the record, but I mean, who knows? I mean, listen, they literally paused like 3 frames in and found out like a coordinate. I mean, I'm not saying they won't figure it out, but I would place my bets that there's probably a pretty good chance they could get close, if not figure it out directly. So
Yeah. It is really, I don't know. It's a lot of fun too, just being able to like talk with people and get, like you're saying, have a finger on the pulse and get people's reaction and, see what stuff they found interesting or what was exciting. And like we'll always write music for us, but it's cool that there are other people like us that, you know, appreciate dumb little details getting buried. And I think a goal of ours is just have the rabbit hole go as deep as people are willing to dive down. And not that obviously you don't have to. We pride ourselves in the songs are great and they stand on their own, but
sure.
it's like that option for depth is there if people want to get really weird with it.
Awesome. And then I guess kind of to follow that up, you know, in the studio, were there any particular bands you guys were, being influenced by that, like you said, there's some dumb heavy tracks on the record. I'm curious, like, if there was any specific bands that you guys were kind of like vibing with, that you're like, you know what if we just like throw in like a dumb heavy riff with like you said, the whole like plane crash, like kind of like vibe. Like, I feel like there was so much like heavy bands that you guys were just like in the rotation of, that you're just like, why not? Let's do it.
For me, so particularly in regards to the track that we have coming out next month, which is like I think the heaviest one on the record. Um, I was listening to a lot of High Lung at the time, which is not exactly a heavy band, um, but they're really good with atmosphere building and
Okay.
really moody. And so, yeah, I just went on a kick for like 2 months where I was just like, into this Nordic. It's not even metal; it's like folk metal, and I was just like, why do more core band, like why has nobody really done this in a metalcore context? Like you get black and deathcore, you get black metal bands, all these like different strains of black and whatever, but like
Sure. Yeah.
you don't get a lot of blackened metalcore. And so we're like, what if we just literally place the story bit in Norway and then go as Norwegian as we can. And it ended up just being so mean, dude. Joe unlocked like 5 uh assist trophies or whatever in Xbox World.
Dude,
5
he really
achievements.
like. Oh, his range is exercised so well on that track.
Oh man,
and
I'm so
like,
stoked.
yeah, like Paul said, it starts off super Norwegian, and then like the way that it kind of gradually fades into a couple of different styles, it feels like, and then like by the end of the track, it feels like you're listening to like a beatdown track. Like it's like shit you want to two-step to when you hear it live.
All right.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that one to come out.
He literally, like, at the end of the song, there's kind of like a reprise of a verse, and he like pulled out this vocal style that everyone's like we've literally never heard you do. It's like a variety of false chord, and we're like, I've just never heard.
Oh
you
my
make that
god.
noise.
Yeah, I didn't know he could do that.
Yeah, it's like it's not he's not like the first to ever do it by any means, but it's like he has a very impressive arsenal of
Oh, he does. Yeah.
tools that he can pull out and just do crazy stuff with.
We have Joe 3.0 for the, or Joe, actually it would be Joe 4.0 for the record, you know. I feel like he's every
Yeah.
album he like unlocks a new,
Explore.
like he's like a character in like an RPG game where you just fucking just stack a bunch of shit on him, and then he just unlocks a bunch of like insane like combos. That's what Joe is.
Exactly.
That's what I'd argue. Like
It's so interesting. Yeah,
he's
I
like
think,
so versatile too, you know.
And when we recorded Bloodlust, I think his thing at the time was he was like, I want to use every single technique that I know how to use on this song. And since then, he's picked up like so many more. Like he continues to like baffle me when I'll see him like, you know, just randomly after a couple months, he'll do vocals around me, and I'll be like, what the hell was that? Like, when did you pick up on this? Like he's still like,
Hell is even that.
yeah. So, yeah, no, it's that dude is insane. I wish I could make noises like him.
Agreed. And then Thomas, what were some of the bands you were listening to around that time frame that were, I guess, within that spectrum of what you guys do?
Dude, to be honest, you know, I listened to a lot of Spirit Box at the time, and Sleep Token. I was really big on them. I went through like obsessive phases with those two bands. Other than that, I kind of fell off from heavy music for like a year or so during the pandemic. I was listening to like a lot of pop music and stuff. So I wasn't drawing a lot from like, you know, new metal releases or anything like that. And I've started reacquainting myself because I realized after a while that I missed out on a lot of really solid releases.
Oh, 100%.
So,
yeah. I would argue
But
that.
Like good year for
Yeah.
metal.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think like even too, I feel like it's always good to take a step away from like metal music sometimes. Like I think we always have this like juxtaposition of being like, well, I'm in a metal band, I can't listen to pop music. And I literally was saying in like the past couple interviews that I've been really digging the Harry Styles record a ton, and I was just like, that was something I would probably never say like 7 years ago, you know, because I'm such a like dedicated person to like, you know, metal and post-hardcore and all that sort of stuff. But now I'm like, yeah, I'll listen to that. I'm a huge Dua Lipa fan. Like, you know, like all this shit that people would probably be like, why are you like, if we were looking at like old me and current me, they'd be like, yo, bro, you can't, that's not it. That's not it, fam. You know?
Yeah, I'm very happy the stigma is fading. Like from being a well-rounded music listener, you know, like the stigma now is against people that are gatekeepy, and I'm very excited about
Thank
that.
God.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
God.
everybody
It was
can just,
about
like, live
time.
their life. Right.
As Lizzo said, it's about damn time.
Dude, and it's like one of the healthiest things for metal as a genre is to attract people that aren't already into metal. It's
Oh,
like
100%.
there's a very small ceiling on the metal community kind of historically, and you know, there are big metal bands, but for the most part it's like a mid-tier metal band is 100th of the size of like a mid-tier alt rock band, you know what I'm saying?
100%. 100%.
So-
I feel like breaking that stigma has helped me a lot in talking to people. Like I'll you know, just in conversation be like, yeah, I'm in a metal band, and I'll have a conversation with somebody, and then they'll be like, oh, like what kind of stuff do you listen to? And then with, you know, finding that common ground with somebody who doesn't listen to metal and like talking to them about something that they could also potentially like, and like being open about what you actually do listen to could be like a really good way to get that person to also be more open-minded and like check out some metal stuff that they might end up liking. Like, it's so toxic to just go back and forth and gatekeep and shit like that.
Yeah, I think even like I was talking about this in a interview, was like, you know, how, you know, pertinent or how crucial, you know, like Metallica was in the Stranger Things movie. You know, like that is someone, again, I mean, obviously tons of notoriety, you know, huge metal band, you know, no doubt. But I think if anything, the thing that I took away from it is that I hope that people kind of, much like myself in getting into the alternative and the heavy scene, was like, I hope that people go and find about like bands that you can see, not that you can't see Metallica, but like bands that you can't see that are like local to you that are doing metal and they would have never given a shit about, right? Like objectively. And so I hope that if anything, it opens and allows people to, you know, not feel stigmatized to like metal or be a part of the metal scene. And I hope that we as a community kind of open the doors to other people that are going to be like, well, I listen to a lot of like alternative, or I listen to a lot of rock, or I listen to a lot of indie. Like, are there bands that are kind of like in that, like, you know, that gray area that are kind of heavy but also not heavy? You know, like when people ask me, they're like, oh, I listen to a lot of indie bands. I'm like, okay, well, you should go listen to like Movements, because they have a nice like post-hardcore like back catalog. But if you listen to the newest record, you know, the one right here,
I see that poster. Yeah.
yeah, the new one, like that one's kind of the nice mix between like, okay, it's kind of like alt, it's kind of indie, but then there's a little bit of post-hardcore in there. And I think that's, you know, I think that's certainly a good mix. And, you know, you want to try to find bands, or like, you know, another band that I always recommend to people is like Holding Absence, where they are like, again, killing it. But also, you know, they do have a lot of like, you know, kind of indie-ish elements to their music. But then again, they also have a back catalog that's more post-hardcore driven. And, you know, I hope that people, again, go down that rabbit hole of listening to different bands and be like, oh shit, this isn't as far off or out of place as I thought it was.
Everybody who's into something that's on an extreme end of a spectrum had a gateway moment, right? It's
Sure,
like,
sure, sure.
so yeah, denying that to anybody has always felt weird. But it's funny because Stranger Things has accomplished that same thing. Not only like Metallica has been like, you know, obviously a huge push on the show, but they also did that for like the D&D community. And there's like
Oh
this
yeah.
huge surge of people getting into D&D and a freaking movie. I don't know if that was at all correlated or influenced by the popularity of the series, but it's like that whole, it's like a revolution for what used to be a very small, almost ostracized community that was not super
Yeah.
respected or
Yeah,
mainstream, you
fair
know?
enough. Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
sad.
that
It
was really
is
cool.
it is sad, and I think that, again, I hope that those communities, you know, obviously completely different communities, but like, you know, I hope that eventually the people kind of see that point of being like, okay, like people that I made fun of growing up, you know, maybe they are just, you know, like that. Not that I made fun of people who play D&D, like that's, you
Sure,
know,
sure, but
that's your
it's, you
shit,
know,
but
that's
you know.
kind of the trope, right? Yeah. Like just seeing, I don't know, anything that lets you see someone else as another person just like you is a positive thing, you know?
Oh, 100%. And like I said, I hope people find that metal band, and, you know, I hope people find your band and are like, yo, I really like the lore of this. Like, you know, I'm about it. Or they're like, I love this ass beater track that I can put on at the gym and, you know, get 10,000 gains from, you know, 20 strength points, you know, on the
Right.
character, you
Max
know,
those 10.
Minimum,
max
dude. 20
minimum
minimum.
20 points, guys. Remember that. Minimum 20 points to strength if you lift to
Min-max
Wise Man
build.
Fear. Max build,
Yeah.
you know. We spared no expense to gains, all right? So maxed out the strength. But uh the other thing I wanted to ask, guys, I know I've asked you this countless times, but I always love following it up with it. Who you guys listening to currently? What's on the Spotify? What you guys been jamming recently?
Dude, I've been in a vicious Throw of the new Drugs record.
Oh,
Destroy Rebuild.
yes. Oh, so good.
It is everything I
It is
wanted
so
out of that
good.
band. It's absurdly
It was like
good.
a time. It was like a time capsule. Like his sound,
Yeah,
like did not
it's so
change.
cool. Yeah, right. Like it's so cool to hear his voice again, but it's like the production is really nice and modern, but timeless. Like it's not,
Oh,
whatever. It was not gimmicky. It's just all the way through. That record is really, really good, and I haven't found an album that I like start to finish like that in a long time. So that was big. Invent
yeah.
Animate's new stuff has been crushing it.
Oh, yes.
And Vin
Uh,
Animate's new stuff is also been jamming that. Super
yeah.
good.
And actually, dude, my girlfriend introduced me to Movements not that long ago. So I'm now just working through their back catalog. So I've
Oh
been having
man,
to feel something. And
I did not know that. Oh shit.
yeah, yeah, I knew of them, but I'd never sunk my teeth in, and
Oh
now I'm
man,
really getting
fantastic.
into them. That and dude, I'm like less so now, but for the past like almost entire year, I've been listening to Absolver by Signs of the Swarm,
Ooh,
and I don't even know why. Like I've never been into them before this record, so it's like kind of a weird one. But dude, oh my gosh, it is so angry.
it is dumb and stupid angry. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's a little frightening on first listen. I love it,
It's
dude.
great. Yeah.
Would recommend. Yeah,
Perfect album to have all of your windows down and pulling up to someone and they being like, "What the fuck are you listening to?" Yeah, 100%.
listen to your music. That's what.
Tom.
Um, dude, like the past like couple days or weeks now, I've been on like a huge Dayseeker kick.
Oh,
They were one of those
yes.
bands where it's like I don't know what my rationale was, but I found like probably 2 or 3 tracks by that band that I really liked, and then never took a deep dive into their discography. And then I
Have those
finally
bands.
did. Yeah, and then I did, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, some of this shit is actually really good, and I was
Oh.
missing out on it for a long time. Like Paul said, new Invent Animate's really good.
Yeah.
Dude, a lot of pop music still. Like,
Give me some
I'm
pop artists. I'm always about throwing those in the mix.
oh, dude, I love Carly Rae Jepsen.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I know
Okay.
that she kind of like fell off in the mainstream, I guess, after, everybody forgot about Call Me Maybe, but she's dropped some
Yeah.
real good stuff since then. Big Charlie XCX fan.
Nice. Yeah.
Man, dude, isn't it crazy? I say this every time I get asked this, but as soon as I get asked this question, like, what have I been listening to? I immediately have to look at Spotify because I forget every single artist I've ever known.
It is true. That is
And
the
then
inner
honestly,
feed
like,
effect.
like just over the course of the past few months, I've worked with a lot of, new artists in like the local scene, like the
Nice.
college town that I live in. And so I went through a phase where, I was just like saving their like singles and stuff like that. So they were like all of the most recent tracks in my liked songs on Spotify.
Oh, very cool.
And then, so I would just listen to like my homies' music on repeat. Like when new Whalebones came out, dude, like all these new Whalebone singles, I've
They're
been
okay.
jamming those so much. All my other homies' projects, that's been like on rotation, and it feels kind of weird because if somebody that like I don't know super personally gets into my car and that's what's playing, then I know they're not going to know a single thing that's playing on my radio. But they should, though, right? Like I should play it for them.
The subliminal messaging, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's respect. Anytime I go into someone else's car, I fully expect them to play me something that I'm not familiar with, and I'll have no choice but to listen to it, which is, I think, always a good thing to get. Like,
Yeah, it's good for character building.
it's good for
mean?
character building, yeah. And then it gives you like 10 points to intelligence or something. I don't know. I'm not an RPG mage here, but yeah, no, I will say Dayseeker. I feel like a lot of people kind of sleep on them super hard, and they've just been releasing heat for as long as I can remember. So I love that band. And then I'm sure you guys have listened to the new Silent Planet track. That thing is dumb.
Wow.
That they were like, all right, you guys like heavy music, you like heavy stuff, all right, we got you. And then I was like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, they went to Buster, what's his name, for
Oldham.
Oldham.
How do you say?
I don't know.
the
We
guy
really
that did like
butchered her name. I'm
Reflections
sorry.
and a bunch of these hard bands. Like, yeah, it shows. That song is insane.
Yeah, because he did shout outs to this Australian band, and because they're nuts. They're called Elysion, I'm pretty sure. He did like the mix and master for that EP, and God, that, first of all, underrated Australian like progressive metalcore band. Definitely go give them some love. But I had found out of, like, I kind of knew about Buster's band, like Viltahara. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly at all, but that band is dumb heavy. Like, if you want to talk about a stupidly heavy band, that is just, it's just dumb. That's the only adjective I could use to describe how heavy it is. It's so,
dude.
it is disgusting. So, but yeah, I like that. I love that there's within the metal scene now is just like you have the bands that are just like, you know what? We've released some really good stuff, but what if we just release this like really dumb, heavy, like ass beater track for you guys? And that's what I feel like Wise Man Fears is gonna do. So I'm ready. I feel like it's ass beating season.
This month, baby.
Yeah,
It is ass beating.
It's ass beating year, baby. Let's go. All right. And we're leading that off on a high note, guys. The last thing, the most important thing, tell the people where they can find you out on social media, when the album drops, because I'm sure everybody is, patiently waiting for the release of that, and then anything else you guys want to kind of plug or talk about.
All of our socials are just /TWMF band. Follow us on Spotify, and we don't actually know when the record is coming out yet, so we're taking it song by song, so it'll be late this year or early next year.
Wow! All right,
but there will be new content consistently between now and then. Is the thing. There will never be a drought.
No droughts.
No droughts.
I hope that the Wise Man Fears boys return back to the channel, because I'd love to have them on for a live track by track, so we can listen through to the album from front to back and go over all the lyrics, all the lore, all the ass beating that could be possibly handled on the internet. So I'm gonna ask them back on again to have. Possibly, I would argue, maybe the longest live track by track I'll have for the entire existence, but it will be well worth it. It'll be a 24-hour stream subathon. No, I'm kidding. Please don't do that.
Yeah, we'll all sit in hot tubs.
Twitch-a-thon, baby. Let's go. But for real, guys, you already know. Listen, I've had these guys on 4 times now. You already know that they're the mega homies. Much love to them for, I don't know why they decided to continue to come back on the channel, or why I continue to ask them, but I'm going to continue to ask them until we have like either haha funny number 69 or haha funny number 420. You guys, I don't know how long we're going to survive for, so I'm going to fingers crossed we make it to 69 at least. But
for the start.
I'll hold on as long as I can, dude.
But go check out the Wise Man Fears. I'll leave all of the links in the description where to go find them. Please go pick up the record if you can. Certainly don't buy the vinyl yet, because I still haven't bought mine yet. So, if you want to hold off and then, open the floodgates and then buy the rest of them, 100% do that. But, you have to let me know that you're going to buy a copy, and then I'll buy it before you do. So, we'll get the logistics worked out, but please go, support the band. Go check out their back catalog. I would highly recommend it. Literally, I think I've done album reviews for all of their records so far, and very excited to throw another one on the list here. But please go check out the Wise Man Fears. And if you enjoyed this interview, share, like, and subscribe. Throw it in the Discord, whatever you got. I appreciate it, and huge thanks to Tom and Paul for coming on, chatting as per usual.
Got you, baby boy.